So let's start with the worst movie that Studio Ghibli probably ever made, and that is Ocean Waves. I wouldn't blame you guys if you've never heard of this movie, because for the longest time I didn't either. This is actually the only Studio Ghibli movie that was a direct-to-television movie, meaning it didn't premiere on cinemas, and there's a really good reason for that. To give you guys a quick synopsis on what the movie is about, it's basically a love story between two high schoolers, and there isn't anything special about the movie besides that. You know, it's funny, I usually really appreciate the work that the studio makes, and I never thought that I would actually be able to hate any of their movies. Sure, I can dislike it, but hate? I really didn't think that was possible. Until I watched this movie. Yeah, I fucking hate this movie, guys. I remember that I got so furiously angry the whole time that I was watching this movie. It kind of reminded me a little bit about how I felt the first time that I watched School Days. Like, that's how pissed off this movie got me. Because the main characters are just that insufferable. The girl, most of all. Like, more than the guy. Just to give you an idea of how much this movie pissed me off, I'll just straight up read directly from my journal. Yes, I like fairy tale, don't give me shit for it. And if you've been around my channel, you know that I've said this many times, but I've always made my reviews on these journals, right? And to finally prove that I have these, here's one, here's another, here's another, here's another, here's all of my journals, okay? But moving on, let's read this bad boy. It was crap. Straight up crap. For fuck's sake. Crap and toilet paper are a better love story than this movie. It's honestly disappointing that Ghibli has this in its name. The main girl is not just uninteresting as fuck. She's a complete thought. From beginning to end. I honestly feel pretty bad for the boy because he was pretty much impressed over nothing. When it comes to romance, I'm a very exigent person. And this didn't cut it for me one little bit. The main characters have to be good characters. And yeah, that's pretty much what I wrote. So yeah, it's honestly disappointing. There's nothing much that I can say about it. The only thing that I can tell you guys is, honestly, unless you're planning to do the same thing I'm doing right now, which is watch every single Ghibli movie for the sake of a YouTube video, skip this one. It's not worth it. I saw that Beyond Ghibli did a video for it a while back saying that he had to give this movie a second chance, and in his second watching he actually started liking the movie. I'm sorry, Joe, but I just disagree. This movie is bad, and I refuse to ever lay eyes on it ever again. Pom Poko. When I first reviewed this movie in my journal, I remember being much nicer to it. Surprisingly so. But after thinking about it for a very long time and reflecting on it from my memories, I'll be honest with you guys, there's just only one reason that you would possibly want to watch this movie. And it's kind of embarrassing to say. But truth is, the only reason anybody watches this movie, it's because of Tanuki balls. Alright, let me explain what I'm talking about. So, tanukis in Japanese culture are yokai, which are like demonic spirits or just spiritual, and they could be good or bad. And the tanuki are kind of good yokai monster spirit thingies. And one of their characteristics is that they can stretch their testicles so much that they can just bounce around everywhere with them, and they can do basically anything with them. They can fly, they can bounce, they can do whatever the f***, they can do magic with them. I knew about that before watching this movie, and I knew that this movie had those scenes in it, and that's really the main reason that I was kind of interested. I got that, and yeah, that's about it. That's all I liked about it. So yeah, there is nothing else of value here. Let's go on to the next review. I'm joking, guys, I'm joking. Obviously, I have to give it a fair chance and try to reflect and see if there's anything else that's good about this movie. So to give you guys a little bit of a synopsis, The movie is about all of these tanukis which live in the forest, and you know, big bad humans are going to destroy their home and they're attacking the humans to see if they can fight for their land. So pretty much this is an environmental story while it's also teaching you about the tanuki yokai at the same time. Now I'm gonna say this straight up, I actually really don't like environmental stories. I feel like they're really shoehorned in and I'm honestly sick of them. It's a trope that I just can't stand at this point. And this movie was definitely no exception to that. There is one thing, however, that was interesting about this movie, and that is the scene almost at the last arc where the yokai do this kind of Japanese traditional parade filled with yokai monsters and all these colors and flashings and spirits. And honestly, that was a pretty epic scene. It was the only epic scene in the entire movie. But the problem is, we had to sit through an hour and 50 minutes of just boring, bland monotony of how these tanukis live. And I feel like the concept is kind of cool, but overall, it was a lot of a waste of time, and I feel like I could have just invested that time reading about Tanuki super quickly instead of watching this long movie. The sad thing about it is that I do believe that the movie was targeted for kids, but I feel like if a child watched this movie, they would just not be interested at all. It would not hold their attention. So it does kind of fail at that, unfortunately. So, good intentions, but unfortunately the movie is just not worth watching. So much like Pom Poko, I was also surprised to read my review for this movie. It seems that I liked it a lot when it first came out, but I feel like that's because at that time I had a bit of a bias for Ghibli movies. I think that I believed deep down that Ghibli could do no wrong, so I've always tried to see the best out of the Ghibli movies. I always tried to see it blindly as good. I was always trying to pick everything that was good about it and never acknowledge the bad. Not that this movie was bad per se, but the truth is, I do remember that it dragged a lot. I really felt the 2 hours that this movie was, right? And I know a lot of Ghibli movies are long, but this one and Pom Poko, I really felt the length. And I remember that I kept looking at my watch all the time. It's like, is it done yet? Is it done? Is it done?
Are we there yet?
No.
Are we there yet?
No.
Are we there yet?
No.
And it never ended. And one of the attributes for that is the fact that, one, I don't really care about planes. Two, I don't care about war stories. That's another kind of genre that I don't care. I don't care about that genre at all. Miyazaki has a philosophy in his life, and that is that everybody should always do their best. They should always work hard and exceed their limits. And they should live, no matter what the hardships are, no matter what the struggles are, live life to the fullest. And this movie is the best example where you see that message, even though you can see it in also other of the Ghibli movies. There's actually a very beautiful quote in the movie that I really liked so much that I wrote it down, which was, "The wind is rising, we must try to live." Right? And that quote, you can kind of analyze what the entire movie stands for. If you analyze it, the wind is a symbol for life. It's the air and the strength that pushes you to dream. It pushes your dreams forward, because wind, it gives life, it gives oxygen. In the main character's case, his dream is to literally build planes. And planes, even though for him it's literally, planes can also be a representation in the movie of one's dream. So your dream can be doing art, it can be doing YouTube, it can be to be a writer, an actor, a fucking prostitute, I don't know. But the point is that the planes, they represent your dreams. And the wind represents the love, the life, the passion, the strength, is the energy that drives your dream to go forward. So when you connect the wind with the planes that make the planes go forward. It's kind of a very interesting metaphor, and I think it's beautiful. But that aside, the movie is boring. I will unfortunately have to say, because it's like this whole monotonous war story. There's also something that always really bothered me about this movie, and if you don't know, Miyazaki loves his couples. He loves making couples out of all the kids in the movies, and I guess the adults as well. And the main couple in this movie, the man, he is actually someone that existed in real life. The woman is probably not a person that exists in real life, but there is something that really bothered me, and that's the fact that when the main male character meets the female character, she's basically a preteen, and he's already a full-fledged adult. And I guess the romance started there, and that bothers me, dude. Like, you're starting to get this fling with this girl, like, they kind of meet in this, like, life or death situation, and maybe that's why they kind of got, fling, right? But the girl is like, she looks like a kid, okay? You actually don't know how old the female is. Like, I tried Googling it, and I couldn't find it anywhere. So it's like, I wonder why people are hiding that information. I wonder why there is no information about the main lead's age. Like, you know? So, and I don't really understand why. Like, why couldn't you just make them the same age? Like, I know that in older times, age gaps were like, whatever, like, I'll marry someone that's 10 years younger, 10 years older, but still, it just bothers me, dude. Not to mention the fact that their romance is just not believable most of the time. I mean, they share very beautiful moments together in some parts of the movie, but the relationship overall is super rushed. So I don't believe it most of the time. It just doesn't sell it to me most of the time, even though they have lovely moments together. So overall, if you like this kind of story about war and planes and all that stuff, I would recommend it. I mean, this is a very personal story for Miyazaki. I feel like this is the first movie that he made for himself. Like, all of his projects are with children protagonists and are about children, and that's what he loves. But this is like his serious movie with an adult protagonist about a subject that he really cares about, which is airplanes and war and all that stuff, because I think his dad went to war and his mother died at a young age, so it is a personal story for him. But even though it's a personal story for him, it's just, for me, like, I respect it, but it's just not interesting. Okay, I don't like Princess Mononoke. I think it's boring. Yes, scream at the screen, yell and complain, do all that shit. I don't care, okay? Go ahead, scream, boo. I don't care. I don't like Princess Mononoke. It's boring, okay? Yes, keep screaming, keep getting rage-filled. Your rage fills me, okay? Your boos mean nothing. I seen what makes you cheer.
Your boos mean nothing. I've seen what makes you cheer.
Go ahead and scream at the screen. Fuck. Like, I don't care, okay? I gotta be honest here. That's how I feel, so let's move on with it. Ready to calm down? Can I talk about my reasons now? You cool? Should you, like, grab some water or tea, you know, to chill more? Okay. So, I'm gonna get to why I am not a fan of Princess Mononoke. Obviously, I know that it's an unpopular opinion. I know that everybody and their mother loves Princess Mononoke, but that is just not my case. And I actually said why in my Pom Poko video, and like the main reason that I don't like Princess Mononoke is because I fucking hate environmental stories. I think they're boring, I think they're tedious. Is the world beautiful? Yes. Is the animation gorgeous? Absolutely. Are the bloody creatures in Princess Mononoke like really cool looking and like bloody, and do I love gore? Everybody knows that I like gore if you've seen my videos. I love fucking violence and all that shit and the war and all that stuff. I think it's cool. But it's an environmental story. It's like human bad to nature. Human must be punished by nature. And yeah. And I'm not a fan of war either. Stories, I don't care about war stories like I said on the previous video. So this movie is basically a recipe for a disaster for me. I basically put it a little bit higher on the list because I wanted to be nicer to, a little bit at least, to the Mononoke fans out there. But yeah, the truth is, that's how I feel about it. The first time that I watched this movie, I remembered that I also struggled a lot. The movie just bored me. And like, I did my best to pay attention. I kept looking at the screen, but the truth is, I was bored the whole time while watching this movie. It felt long, it felt drag, I just didn't care anymore. And I don't like this movie. I mean, like I said, there are really great things about it. There is a reason why everybody loves this movie. It's a message that resonates with people. Maybe you might not like environmental stories, but this one is just special to you. And there is a lot of action in this movie, right? People are doing shit, people are always fighting. But that's the thing, it's like the typical human fighting against each other. The girl that was raised in the woods and she drinks the freaking blood of the fucking wolf so she can get rid of the poison, and she's a savage and we gotta kill the savage or whatever. And then the kami-sama is gonna fuck everything. So it's like, I don't care, okay? I don't care. I don't like this movie. It's boring to me. I'm sorry. Another reason why this movie maybe is one that I didn't like much, and that is because when I first watched Spirited Away, you know, I loved that movie. It was actually my first ever Ghibli movie that I watched. And I remember that when I watched Princess Mononoke, it was it was always that debate. It was Mononoke versus Spirited Away. Which one is better, right? There was always the people that were Team Princess Mononoke. There were the people that were Team Spirited Away. So it was like that debate thing. It's like the two juggernauts of Ghibli. And I think that when I watched Spirited Away, since I watched it first, I think that subconsciously I might have compared it the whole time with Spirited Away. I kept comparing it and feeling like it was inferior in every single way, shape, or form. Like, I kept thinking, now Spirited Away is so much better because this and that, and maybe that could have added to the fact of why I didn't like this movie. Something very similar happened to me when I watched Code Geass after watching Death Note. I kept thinking that Lelouch was just a peasant version of Light Yagami. So yeah, that could be a reason why I don't like it. And the truth is, I don't want to watch this movie again. If I don't like something, I don't give it second chances. Unless I have a very specific reason to do so. I mean, I don't know, since you guys are like fans of Princess Mononoke, and the majority of people like, maybe if this video got, what, 1,000 likes, I'll watch it again, okay? Okay. Yeah, sure, 1,000 likes, I'll watch it again. I'll even give you like a recap review to see if I like the movie. I'll live stream the whole thing, promise. But give me those 1,000 likes, okay? But yeah, other than that, life is too short to give movies second chances when there's like 10 million other pieces of entertainment out there. So, my bias, I'm not a fan. Alright, Nausicaa. a mildly less boring version of Princess Mononoke for some reason. Even though on a technical aspect, Princess Mononoke is superior, especially considering the fact that I don't really remember seeing that much green on Nausicaa and the Valley of the Wind, even though it's also a nature story. I don't know, something about this one felt less boring to me. Maybe it's because of the futuristic technology. Maybe it's because, I don't know, that weird animal thing. I don't know. Or maybe it's because it was shorter. I don't know what it was, but for some reason this one just felt mildly less poopy. But yeah, they're kind of in between, right? I mean, Nausicaa and the Valley of the Wind actually has a very interesting story, and that's also a reason why I appreciate it more than Princess Mononoke. Obviously, Princess Mononoke is considered one of Ghibli's best work, but Nausicaa and the Valley of the Wind started everything, and I kind of really respect and appreciate that. I mean, there is those people that don't really consider it a Ghibli movie, and if you want to be technical about it, no, it's not a Ghibli movie. But the reason why I am putting it on this list is because, to me, it feels like a Ghibli movie because it's the essence. It's like the seed that started it all. This was like pre-Ghibli. This was the project that Miyazaki made to see if he had what it takes to make the studio, perhaps. At least that's how I see it. And that movie was a success. They chose a really interesting manga to adapt into a movie. It's a thematic that Miyazaki likes, which is nature stories. And after that, we had Castle in the Sky and Ghibli was born. So for a first movie, I think that it's a pretty honorable one. I think it did a good job. It's definitely not perfect. Like I said, it's boring because of the thematic that is not interesting to me. But I also feel like the characters are not that good as well. I feel like they're a bit flawed. So that's another reason why I didn't like it that much. Sorry about that. As you can see, we're recording the next day. The battery kind of ran out. But anyways, as I was saying, unless you're a massive Ghibli fan, I don't really recommend this movie so much, even though it is like important for Ghibli's history. I mean, if for that, like if that's important to you, then by all means watch this movie. But if you are watching this movie thinking that you're going to watch a grand piece of Ghibli's work, there are better Ghibli movies out there. I mean, I am ranking this movie pretty low for a reason, right? I mean, like, it was really hard for me to decide, like, Nausicaa or Princess Mononoke, which one do I like less? Right, because Mononoke, as much as Mononoke bores me, it has more interesting visuals, but Nausicaa, it bores me less. So I don't know, maybe what I can put to appease the Mononoke fans a little bit is I'll rank this one the 20th, but I'll upload Princess Mononoke first. So maybe that'll appease you guys a little bit. But other than that, I wouldn't say, unless you care about Ghibli's history, it's not super recommendable. It's like passable, like it's not awful, but there are better movies to watch. Also, for the love of God, Nausicaa, wear some goddamn panties! Another Ghibli movie that in my journal it says, I like it for what it was, I thought it was okay. I really don't understand younger me, man, because all I remember about this movie is a lot of question marks. And I really mean a lot of question marks. Because even though Ghibli is known for making content that doesn't have a lot of explanation, in this kind of movie, you kind of need to know what's going on to understand it. And I don't understand jack shit of what's happening most of the time. So to give a little bit of context, this was Goro Miyazaki's first movie that he directed, and it was based off a book. But not just one book. Tales of Earthsea is actually a whole series. So I am not sure if Goro Miyazaki was planning sequels, but considering that Studio Ghibli doesn't do sequels, like they've never made a sequel, I really don't think it was a good idea to adapt a story that is the fucking entire series, right? Because it's going to raise a lot of questions, it's gonna give a lot of empty slots in the movie, it's going to seem hollow and unfinished. So it just does not work for the Ghibli formula, man, unfortunately. But, you know, it's Goro's first work, and at least I will give him credit for trying his best. And Goro is also someone that is always very different from his dad. He's always experimenting with new things, new ideas, and new technology. So, I mean, if I could, I would give Goro like a little pat on the head, you know, like, good job, Goro, you did a good first movie. Unlike his dad, who basically, you know, left the theater and said that his son was a disappointment and smoked a cigarette like the edgy dad that he is, which was kind of a dick move, if you ask me. But going back to the movie, like I said, I didn't understand a lot about it. And one of the things that I didn't understand was just the main character himself. First, it was boring as heck, and second, I didn't understand what his objectives was, what his motivations was why is he doing any of it? Why is he doing anything? Like he barely feels like a character the whole time. I don't remember anything about him. On the other hand, dude, the wizard, fuck yeah. The wizard in this movie should have been the actual main character, because that dude is super interesting as fuck. He's the one that I want to learn about, like, where did he come from, where is he going? It almost feels like the relationship in this movie is similar to the relationship between, you know, Gandalf and Frodo or Bilbo. Like, Frodo and Bilbo on their own, they're just boring ass characters. Like, they don't really have any motivations, they just kind of vibe and go with the flow. But then Gandalf is here like the mastermind and knows everything and is in touch with the cosmos and the reality and is like doing all this cool shit all the time and is like exactly how I planned it, you know? So that relationship is just like the relationship between the main boy and the wizard in this book, which I love. I love the wizard, but really the main boy is like, what the fuck? Also, the rest of the characters, like the other main characters in this movie, are a girl with a burned thing on her face. I didn't think that she was interesting either. I actually thought that the lady who was like closer to the wizard's age, which was her friend, even she was more interesting. So basically, Miyazaki's very good at writing children characters, but I guess Goro doesn't know what a good child character is, because the children characters in this movie are basically as bland as soap. Some other things that I didn't understand about this movie is something about the girl having eternal life for some reason. And even though there is a goddamn dragon in the poster of the movie, we only get that dragon for like 5 minutes at the very end, and it's like he pops out of nowhere and you're like, where the fuck did you come from, you know? And it's like, what's the point of you? But there's no explanation for anything in this movie, so unfortunately, it's just not a good adaptation. I mean, maybe I would be interested in reading the books, but considering how this adaptation was so bad, probably I wouldn't give it a try. I mean, there are other books that I prefer to read, you know? So, overall thoughts, I feel like if this was adapted into an anime, like an anime series, because there are so many books, it would have worked a lot better than the fact that this was just one movie, right? And as we learn later on, Goro really sucks at picking material to adapt, because it looks like the man, if he makes something, it's going to be incomplete. But we'll talk about that later when we get to Earwig and the Witch. So yeah, overall, I wouldn't bother with it. Maybe read the book. I don't know if it's good. I guess you would have to look at another review for that. So I would skip this one. Alright, so number 17, we have Earwig and the Witch. So you guys are probably still pissed off about the whole Mononoke thing, right? And you're probably gonna be even more pissed off about the fact that I'm putting this movie above Princess Mononoke. I'm going to die, aren't I? But let me explain my reasoning for it. So, everybody that I've seen on the internet absolutely despises this movie. They're like, oh, this movie doesn't look like Ghibli. Ghibli is supposed to be hand-drawn animation. This is a disgrace. If Miyazaki was dead, he'd be rolling in his grave. Goro, what the fuck are you doing? So, the reason why Goro made this movie is because he wanted to experiment with new technology. And like I said in the previous video, he loves doing that shit. He's always trying to experiment with the new, unlike his dad, who's more traditional. I mean, if it ain't broken, am I right? But the thing is, it's not, but the hand is, like, hand animation does take a lot of time to draw. Like, that's the argument that a lot of people made, is like, oh, the studio is being lazy. Goro made a lazy decision. He wants to do 3D animation because that takes quicker. But, dude, you need to consider something. I think this movie took, what, 4 years to develop? That's a really long ass time. And most of the time that it took was because Goro and his team were learning how to use this kind of new animation. So it does take a lot of work as well. I highly doubt that Goro made this for the sake of just, oh, it's faster. They spent years making this movie. But that aside, how good is this movie? So I'm guessing that because they spent a lot of time in the development of the animation, they kind of forgot that the story also was supposed to be an important factor, right? Because the truth about this movie is that it's kind of boring as well, but I'll give you this. The movie is an hour and 20 minutes long, so it is digestible. It's lacking a lot because a lot of what happens in this movie is very slice of lifey. It's Earwig learning to adapt to this new environment in her new house and learning how to cope with her witch mother and all of that mumbo jumbo of her learning magic and whatnot. But the thing is that we focus so much of her learning how to adapt in the house and learning trying to learn spells because her mom doesn't really want to teach her, and she's trying to get higher in the hierarchy of the house so that she can control everybody better like she used to do at her orphanage and all that crap. So because we spend so much time with the slice of lifey elements, we don't really get a story. If you see the poster here, you see that Earwig is singing in the mic, but she doesn't show any interest in singing at all. The reason why she's singing in the mic is because there is a plot in the movie that the witch used to be in a band with the mandrake who she lives with. It's not really clear if they're a thing or not. I don't think they are, but I digress. So, they used to be in the band, and basically Earwig is trying to revive that interest in them. And there is this, red witch as well, which is, Earwig's mom. That's not really a spoiler because it happens in the first 5 minutes of the movie. You can see the witch clearly. And speaking of the witches, dude, look, I know that you guys probably ran out of budget or I don't know what, but look at these witches. Do they look different to you? The hair is literally the same hair. One is blue, one is red. That's it. They look exactly the same. Couldn't go to pay someone to design a different witch? For fuck's sake. Why did they have to look the same, dude? It's super, I don't know, dude. It felt like lack of effort, or it's oh fuck, we were paying so much attention to the animation that we completely forgot about designing the damn witches, you know? And that's just like really lackluster. Not to mention the fact that the whole setting of the movie is this house. And in comparison to other Ghibli movies where there's these magical lands that are full of shit to you to explore, it's just a house and these 3 characters. So it's like a tiny space, right? So maybe Goro picked this tiny space because they were experimenting with the new technology, but yeah, this movie was just an experiment. It didn't feel like a real Ghibli movie in that sense. Like, I feel like, I don't know, they could have studied, right, the technology, but if they wanted to make a really good new movie, then they should have given this one more time to actually develop the story, or they should have adapted something else, because the truth of the matter is that this movie ends in this cliffhanger, right? And in this cliffhanger that things are actually seem that they're gonna get more interesting, and then stops. The movie ends and you're like, that's it? Like, it was kind of slow in the beginning, but then you finally are giving me some interesting crap and then you just end it there? Like, come on, dude. I feel like whoever wrote this script, like, they're the real failure in this movie. Like, if they had written a better script, then it could have succeeded. But all of that aside, let's talk about the animation again. Because there are all of these debates that this doesn't look like a Ghibli movie, the designs look like it, but it's missing that Ghibli magic because it's just not the same. And I was gonna say to an extent, but the truth is that I mostly agree with that. However, I will say one thing that probably is controversial, and that's the fact that this is the best 3D animated anime I've ever seen. And yes, I have seen Land of the Lustrous, and I have seen clips of Beastars. I fucking hate those animations. I know that everybody and their mother is like, oh my god, Studio Orange makes immaculate animation. But honestly, it feels like sheep is just following the herd at this point, because it's either that or I'm stupid because I don't see it, to be honest. Like, to me, the animation in Orange's studio, I know that they work very hard, they are doing better than the competition, right? But it's just not good enough. Like, I honestly hate 3D anime. Like, to me, stylistic wise, it just sucks. But Earwig and the Witch actually, I feel like, did a pretty good job. It really feels a lot like a Westerner movie. This, like, didn't have, like, the anime style to it. The animation quality feels a lot more like a Western movie than anime. But in that regard, like, the animation is good. It looks like a bit like the newest Lupin in the Third movie, which I haven't seen, but I have seen clips of it. But that being said, I honestly would prefer for Ghibli never to do this again. Like, Ghibli is famous for its traditional, beautiful, hand-drawn animation. So I don't really want more 3D Ghibli movies. I mean, the public didn't receive it well for a reason, right? I mean, even though I like this animation, I think it's fine, I think it's good compared to other 3D anime. I still don't want more of it from Ghibli. Like, I would be willing for, I don't know, Studio Orange to change their anime style, like their 3D anime art, for example, and use this instead. For example, I don't know, if Beastars was animated like this, maybe I would watch it. But I don't know how that would work style-wise, to be fair. But yeah, overall, my thoughts on this movie are, it's not as bad as everyone says. I feel like everybody's treating it with way too much crap. Like, it's really not that bad. It's digestible, it's cutesy, it's simple, it's slice of lifey, and you can watch it and you, like, I wouldn't say it's an awful time. I don't particularly recommend it. I'm just saying it's not as bad as everybody is saying it is. So The Secret World of Arriety is basically Ghibli's take on the whole tiny world, tiny people story, right? And for what it is, it's fine, it's very cute. I like the creativity and how these little people called borrowers take things from the human world that they feel like they're not gonna miss or they don't need, and use it like to build their home, to like build their world. Like it's just one family, which is like really cutesy, right? However, since it's like that classic small people world story, it's not particularly original. But of all the takes that I've seen on it, I would say it is the nicest one that I've seen. When we're talking actually about little people, not like insect or anything like that, like little people, like it is cute. However, the story is really lackluster, is really lacking. So the main conflict of the story is that one of the members in the house, who's like a bad person more or less, finds out about the little people, the borrowers, and she wants to expose them so she can make a profit out of them, right? It's like that classic cliche story, right? Which I'm not a fan of. I mean, Ghibli is such a creative studio. I feel like if they had gone with a more creative take to it, like it would have been such a more interesting story. For example, a big part of the plot of The Secret World of Arriety as well is the fact that she, Arriety, and the boy, they have this friendship going on, right? That they start being friends at the beginning of the movie, but that never goes anywhere. Like they present this opportunity, right, of the little person and the big person, which again we have seen. However, I feel like they could have done something unique with it. I would have preferred that than like the villainous adult that wants to sell the little people. By the way, I just remember they actually call the human beings beans. Like beans, like, right? Like, I'm pretty sure they spell the beans in the subtitles, but yeah, like, instead of calling them human beings, they call them beans, which it's kind of cute, right? But anyways, like, I feel like the relationship between the borrowers and the beans, like, could have been, like, more interesting, right? Because I like the whole, like, little world, like, I don't like it because I feel like there's not a lot of really good little people movies out there. I would say this is one of the best ones, but it's not a trope or a story that I'm impressed with, right? It's not particularly original. It can be done well, but I feel like nobody has actually been able to do it as well yet, right? But anyways, sorry, I'm jumping back and forth. As I was saying, like, they could have developed a friendship between Arriety and the boy, and like some idea, for example, it could be like a little love story, right? Like between a tiny person and a human, like, and how that would have worked out, right? I think that could have worked because the thing that annoys me is the fact that we barely see the boy. We barely do anything with the boy. I feel like we have more screen time with the villain of the story than we do with the boy, and like he's in the poster for a lot of this stuff, so it's like, but we barely get to see the boy. It's like, I don't know, Moana, and like the pig is in the poster, but we never see anything with the pig, right? It's like, or Tears of Earthsea, like we see the dragon, but he doesn't do anything. So it's like, you could have done a lot more with this movie, but you went with like the stupid plot of evil human. Oh, humans are evil, let's fuck with the little people, right? But yeah, other than that, I like I said, I like the creativity of the small world. I think it's cutesy. But yeah, other than like the small world and how they navigate through it, this movie is like not that amazing. And I feel like it is cutesy and it's fine for what it is, but you could have done a lot more. This movie, Goro. Why? Warum? Por quê? Por quê? from Up a Poppy Hill. I actually had this in my top 10 because I remember this movie fondly. Oddly enough, like I remember this movie fondly. Like I don't understand my memory at this point because even though I remember it fondly, like on my original top 10, my first top 10 that I rearranged it, I read the review and then I remembered something about this movie that just made it went down. It went down the list. It just went down. It went down. It went down. It went down so bad. I was like, my God, why? Why? I will say what it is later in this video. This video is going to contain spoilers. I'll warn you guys when we get there, but let's talk about the spoiler-free things first, right? So, From Up a Poppy Hill is a very like slice of lifey story. It's a slice of lifey movie about post-war Japan, which is something that I didn't know until I looked up the movie. I did a little bit of research on this movie before like doing the video on it, and I learned that it was like a post-war Japan movie, and I was like, oh, I never would have known that if it wasn't for a Google search, but now that I know this, I can definitely see that in the movie, and I appreciate it more for that, right? Like, because the entire movie does have this feels of like Japan being like very calm and very accepting of what happened and wanting to move on from that. So I thought that that energy was like very interesting in the movie. But that's not part of the plot so much. It's a very slice of lifey movie, like I said. So it's basically about this girl and this guy. They're around 17 years old. In school, like the boys in the school, they have like this club, and like it's falling apart, and then they ask, like they want to rebuild the club, and then the girls help, and it's a community thing, and the construction of the clubhouse is like super cool. They're all like adding all these gadgets and weird shit in the house, and I thought that was dope. Like it's not that meaningful of a story, right? It's not that crazy wonderful of a story, but it works for this, and it was sweet. It was nice. Like I had good memories of it, right? Of those elements. Also, this movie was directed by Goro Miyazaki as well. And I feel like this is Goro's most successful project in the sense that this is his movie that feels the most Ghibli, if that makes sense. Of all the movies that he's made, this is the most Ghibli feeling movie. Like it has that charm to it, it has that vibe to it. It feels like a Ghibli movie. So, I mean, for Goro to replicate that, I give him props for that, right? I love the town that this movie is made on, like the Poppy Hill. Like I love the aesthetic of the town. It's like very beautiful, it's very calming. Like it looks like a place that I would want to visit. I think that's one of the reasons why I love this movie so much. I love the ambience in which it was set. It was by the sea, right? Which Ponyo had that kind of vibe as well, but for some reason, maybe it's that hill, like being able to like be on top of this hill and look down, and you have like, you can go down this hill and you see the ocean. I don't know, something about that in particular really resonated with me. I thought it was very beautiful. The main character, like I really liked the first scene in the movie where she's cooking and then raising the flag. I think all of that is like, it's a movie you feel rather than like that you watch, right? And I guess you can say that for a lot of Ghibli movies, but this one in particular is one that you feel more than you like see, right? And I feel like that's why Goro really nailed, right, the Ghibli formula, and that's why I appreciate this movie a lot. To be honest, because this movie is not very loud, it's a very quiet and mellow movie, I can also see it being boring for a lot of people, right, which also puts it down. It's not like, it could be like not as interesting, right? You don't have like gigantic cute characters like Totoro, for example, that just captures most of your attention. It's just these people doing normal things in a normal life, trying to be normal and go back to normal society. So, and this movie is not particularly very popular as well. But even that, like, even though some people might find it a little boring, I appreciate this movie. So saying that overall, I think it's a movie that is worth watching at least once. I think you should watch it at least once. But now that I've said that, I want to talk about why this movie has gone so low on this list for me. If you've seen this movie already, you will know what I'm talking about. If you haven't seen it, but you're okay with spoilers, you're gonna know. So this movie dives into topics of incest. And I know that meme-wise, everybody's like, oh, incest is wincest, incest is hot and hentai or whatever the fuck, but like, come on, it's Ghibli. It's Ghibli, and they're tackling with topics of incest, and that bothers me a lot. Like, a lot, right? I'm not like a social justice warrior or anything, so I'm not gonna say something like, oh, this could teach children that maybe it's okay, incest, or like, who cares? Love is love. Love conquers all, even incest. And it's like, no. Dude, would you fuck your brother or your sister? Then, like, if you found out that the person that you're in love with would, like, it's about these two main characters, right? They fall in love. And there's a plot in the movie where they find out they can be related. But they're like, both of them are like, I don't care if we could be related. If we're related, I still love you anyway, and I don't want to give this up. And it's like, what the fuck? What the fuck, dude? Like, that in a Ghibli movie is like, no, dude, it's like, it bothers me. Okay, it bothers me a lot. I'm not a fan, okay? Goro, what the fuck were you thinking? Why did you do this, okay? Like, in the end, we find out that they're not related, so for them, it's like a huge like, phew, then it's okay, we don't have to worry about anything, our love is forever. But here's the thing, if they were related, the vibe that the movie was giving me is that if they were related, they wouldn't care, they would still be together, they would still, like, you know, be in love and do things that couples do, they would turn to a couple, and that's disgusting. Like, it's disgusting in real life, it's disgusting in a movie. Like, incest is not incest, okay? It's not, okay? And it really bothers me that Goro to put that. I don't know where Poppy Hill comes from. I don't think it's an adaptation of, like, anything. But if it is, okay, I get it. He wants to adapt it faithfully, but, like, still, like, dude, you were able to change things creatively, like, so many times with your work. You could have changed that if it was an adaptation, but I don't think it is. But yeah, that alone put the movie down for me like a lot, right? It's place 15, I believe, or 14. So yeah, honestly, disgusting, disappointing, that bit, right? But if you can have the courage to look past by that, I guess I would still say give it a watch at least once, because there are a lot of good, nice, wholesome things about this movie, like, if you can ignore that. But if you wouldn't want to watch it because of that, and because of, like, because it's a slow movie, then I completely understand and don't watch it, right? But you would have to be okay with those things to watch this movie. Incest stories, like, you know, like romance between two people that could be siblings, or they actually are siblings and they find out later, they can work, but the way to make it work is that for the siblings to be like, suffer, right? Of course, you're gonna suffer, like, it's heartbreaking, like, that person you were in love with was your fucking blood relative, right? But accept and move on. Like, an example that I can think of, if anybody watching this knows the book series Ender's Game, on the second book, they show a very good example of this plot. Like, there are two characters that are siblings, and when they find out, they suffer for it, but they accept, look, we're siblings, we can't be together anymore, and that's that, right? And, like, that's how you use it well. But if you do the opposite, if you're like, no, we don't care, love, it's like, No, that's just wrong. It's a very bad message to send, especially if you're Ghibli. Porco Rosso, man. Pretty low, still, I guess. I mean, he was higher, but like after thinking about it a lot, like I decided to put him a little low. But that does not mean that I don't like this movie. I like this movie a lot more than The Wind Rises, as you can see. But the thing that the reason why is I think it's because I love Porco Rosso himself. I love his character so much, dude. Like, I love his design. I mean, he's just a pig, right? But he's not just a pig, he's just so much more. He's a man, you know? He's a real, like, charismatic, he's chill, he's just trying to live life, he's a good man. So it doesn't matter what he looks like, because there's just so much to Porco Rosso on the inside that makes him such a wonderful character. And I really love him for that. But other than that, there are like other elements in the movie are weaker than Porco Rosso himself. Like, he's the strong part of the movie, but they're not bad. So what is more or less Porco Rosso about? I had a hard time remembering what it was about. I had to, like, again, look it up a little bit. From what I remember is that Porco Rosso, he's a pig because he was cursed from war. So because of that, he turned into a pig. Oh yeah, he's a pilot, by the way, for those who don't know. And this is basically Ghibli's early signs of showing us that he was a pilot nerd this whole time, right? Because this was his first, like, pilot movie, right? And you can tell, like, this is kind of like the beginnings, like, almost of Miyazaki's, like, message of live life to the fullest, right? Like, he really loves planes in that message, right? And, like, just like The Wind Rises has that, you can see that in Porco Rosso as well. So even though Porco Rosso, he was cursed, but he's still trying to live life to the fullest. He's still trying to, like, redeem himself for his sins. I don't remember, like, what those sins were, but, like, I think he did something bad, like, while he in his pilot days, in his war days, and he's trying to, you know, commend for that. And you can see that he basically is slowly commending for that, because he's already, by the point that we see him, a very good person, a very likable character, right? So the movie is about, he likes to fly still. He loves flying more than anything. So he goes into this shop and he wants his plane fixed, and he meets the 17-year-old girl who she falls in love with him, right? And it's like, Miyazaki, couldn't you have made her 18? Please? Couldn't you have made her 18? What is it with your fucking characters and being underage and falling in love with older men, dude? Why? Why? I don't understand, Miyazaki. It's like, is it so that younger people can relate? Like, why, dude? What is it with the number 17 in these movies? I don't get it, but I digress. Alas, she's underage, but whatever. She falls in love with a pig who's like in his 30s or 40s, I think. And there is like this group of like bandits of the sky who really hate Porco Rosso for some reason, and the guy, like the leader, like really is in love with the girl who's in love with Porco Rosso, right? And he doesn't know that she likes him, right? Just like whatever. And the guy is like, he's threatening. He's like, oh, we're gonna fight, we're gonna duel, or whatever the fuck. And Porco Rosso's just like, okay, you know? It's like, oh, dude, why? Just chill. Like, let's fight, let's live. It's like, no. And it's like, fine, I'll fight you, I guess. And then, but everything works out, and then they end up being friends. And the girl like tells him, I love you, Porco Rosso, and it kind of ends like that, right? So yeah, I'm sorry that if I wasn't able to explain the plot all that much, but you know, like, Miyazaki is more of a character-driven storyteller than narrative, right? You guys know that at this point. And if you didn't know, if you didn't watch the other videos, or I don't even remember if I mentioned it at this point, oh my god! But anyways, I guess I'll repeat, repetition is good, right? So Miyazaki is a person who, whenever he makes a story, he draws something, and from that drawing, that's where he creates the movie, right? He never writes scripts. He doesn't care about that shit. He wants to show the world something beautiful, and those grow from the drawing is not from words, right? He's a man's like 1,000 pictures worth more than 1,000 words. Like, he lives by that, and like that's how this movie was made. So yeah, I like this movie. I think it's a very sweet movie. I prefer this one 50 times more than the Rind Rises. This one's much better, more enjoyable, because again, I love Porco Rosso. Like, I just want to give him a hug so bad. Like, he's my spirit animal, dude. Like, like, I feel like I could just have a conversation with him and like, dude, teach me about life, dude. Like, just like tell me about your stories. Like, dude, like, let's smoke a cigarette. Like, I don't smoke, but like, let's smoke a cigarette and just talk to me about anything. Like, he just seems like such a cool dude. So in that case, I do recommend Porco Rosso if you've seen all the other Ghibli movies and you want to watch something Ghibli that like it's nice. I would recommend Porco Rosso. Alright, number 13, Castle in the Sky. So this is this is the first Ghibli movie to ever come out, right? The first official movie. And I guess for what it was, like, it's like one of Ghibli's first, right? And for being the first project, it's fine, it's nice, it's like Nausicaa, just established the stepping stones. But other than that, I feel like this movie is kind of forgettable. Like, it's a very like out of 10 movie, right? It's like it's fine, I guess. With salt, it passes with salt, right? Put a little salt and it's fine. But I don't consider it a very memorable movie because I don't find that any of the characters are all that interesting, except for the pirate captain, but we'll talk about that later. So Castle in the Sky is about this girl who is like this princess of this ancient civilization. The name of the island, the floating island, the Castle in the Sky, is called Laputa. And fun fact about Laputa, so it's an island that was taken from a book in Gulliver's Travels, I think, and the person who wrote Gulliver's Travels is an Irishman, so I have no idea if he knew that Laputa means something extremely offensive in Spanish. Just in case you didn't know either, it means something very offensive. Look it up and you'll see what Laputa means. I'm not gonna tell you because YouTube is gonna fucking kill me if they well, I just said that F word. I don't know, dude, who cares? So anyways, this girl falls from the sky and she finds a boy, and like the girl is being chased down the whole time, right, by this group of bad guys, and she has like this crystal that will lead them to the castle in the sky, and then they find it, and then they fight for something, and then it ends in the end. It's like it has a story, it has more story, I feel like, with Porco Rosso, right? But the characters, except like they're not that interesting. The story itself is not that interesting. I felt like this movie was very empty. The whole time I felt like it just needed a little something extra. It was missing something. It was missing some flavor, some spice, some paprika or something. And this movie, like younger me in my journals, like she was able to spot like a lot of plot holes, right? That I'm not going to, it has to do with the main villain, right? Like he should have been able to like have like one of the crystals himself, right? If you think about it logically. Okay, spoiler, 5 seconds. 5 seconds spoiler. The villain should have been able to have a crystal. I mean, he was one of like the... He was royalty. He said that he was royalty, and if he was royalty, meaning that he was part of like Laputa, then he should have had a crystal to be able to find the island, but he didn't. So it's like, why, dude? And why are you chasing this child the whole time? Alright, end of spoiler. Another thing that disappointed me about this movie was the fact that the castle, though it looked very beautiful on the outside, it was like a very detailed castle. It was very beautiful. Like, I love the castle. It was stunning, right? But it was stunning on the outside, and on the inside it felt really hollow, which I feel like it's like a good analogy for this movie. Like, on the outside it looks super cool, but on the inside it's like, it's okay, guys. And like the reason that I'm saying this is that if you see promotional pictures of Castle in the Sky, it's like this beautiful castle in the sky filled with green. There are these super cool robots that I really love the design of these robots in the movie as well. But when you actually walk inside of the castle, it's like dark, dim, colorless, lifeless. There's nothing in there. Like so much that it's like, why did you want this place so badly? Like, I don't know. Aside from it being a floating island and being part of royalty and whatever the fuck. But anyways, so like I feel like that disappointed me a little bit. But talking about good things, like I said, I loved the island. But another thing that I really like is the pirate characters and everything that revolves with the sky pirates. Like there are these pirates in this movie, which are called the Sky Pirates. They're literally sky pirates. They find the sky, which I thought was so creative and so nice. Like I feel like they took like inspiration from Nausicaa, maybe with a little flying thing. And I really love the grandma and her entire like family of her children. Like they're so charming and charismatic. Like I wanted the movie to be about them instead, because I really don't care about this main girl. I don't care about this boy. Like, but I love these pirates and I love the main grandma. So I feel like literally my favorite part of the movie was when like everybody was going to Laputa. Like that period was like really fun. It was the best part of the movie. It was like what, 10-20 minutes. It was the best part. Then the rest was just like when they got into the island, it's like, oh, it's pretty, it's beautiful, and then we actually walk around the castle inside, it's like so ugly, you know? So I'm actually thinking about maybe I should put this one below Porco Rosso, but I'm not sure. We'll see how it goes at the end, right? But yeah, overall, I think I don't recommend this one. I think I'd rather you guys watch Porco Rosso than this one. So even though like the pirate stuff is nice, like the rest of the movie is just it's bland. It's like very forgettable. So much that I literally forgot about it. So that is my verdict. Right, number 12. So The Cat Returns. So to give a little bit of context about this movie, it's pretty much the most meta thing that Ghibli ever made. So this movie is the story, right, created by a character inside of another Ghibli movie, which is like upper on the list, right? And this character is like a little girl that's writing the story of this cat. Now in that movie, the story that she wrote is very different from the movie that we see in this one, from the story in this one, right? But it does have the same character. So you can interpret this movie two ways. Either this is like her perfected story of that story that she was writing. Either like you could say this is meta and she wrote the story herself, if you want to see it like that. Or you could just not see it like that, and it's like, it's just a Ghibli story, it's just a Ghibli, something Ghibli made, right? But I really like looking at it from the meta perspective of a little girl, like in another Ghibli movie wrote this, and then it turned into a movie in Ghibli. Like, I don't know, it's like Ghibli's little mini cinematic universe. I love it, it's very cute. So I think that's the most interesting thing about this movie, right? To give a little bit of perspective, if you want to look at it from the lenses of a child who wrote this, I think that this movie is very impressive for a little girl to have written this entire story down, right? And it's long enough that it was able to turn into a movie. I think that's very cool. Like, it's very creative, it's colorful, it has a very cutesy world, many cutesy cats. And I like it for what it is, right? It's a very cute, innocent child story or movie, right? However, I feel like its weak sides would be that, like, it's an hour and 15 minutes, right? But it really feels dragged down on the final third or fourth. Especially, there's like a chasing scene going on in this movie, and I feel like that part is really dragged out. very kind of tedious, very kind of boring, so I wasn't like really into it. The first 2/3 of the movie I really enjoyed, but the last third was like, it's not that good. So even though it's a very cutesy movie for kids, it's not all that great for adults, right? It doesn't have anything that would catch an adult's mind. So what is this movie about? It's about like a girl who saves the life of a cat who ended up being a prince, right? And because of that, like the king of the cats, he wants the girl, the human girl, to turn into a cat to marry the prince. And then like a whole fiasco starts from there. And because of that fiasco, like the cat king, he wants the girl to marry like the cat prince, and like it turns into this crazy adventure chase thingamabob. So it's not like super original, I guess. I feel like I've seen this before somewhere else. I just can't really recall where. But it's not particularly like a trope, or it's not something that's super common, like this kind of trope story thingy, so it's fine. Like a kid made it, and I think it's very cute and original for what it is, for a child's thingy, like if you want to see in that perspective. However, if we're going to be realistic, adults wrote this, right? And they wrote this for kids, so for kids it's good, but overall my thoughts on it is that it doesn't really have value for you if you're an adult, or unless you're an adult who really loves cute cats and you just want to see a movie with cute cats doing cute cat things and cool things. Like the main character is the Baron, right? And this Baron is like trying to protect a human girl, like in this cat world, right? It's like, no, she doesn't have to marry this dude, like what the fuck, this is weird, right? It's interesting in that sense, but unless you're a person that loves cutesy stuff, I don't really recommend this movie all that much. But I like it for what it is. So coming up we have Ponyo. So Ponyo is one of the most popular movies, I feel, when it comes to Ghibli's line of work, because of the cutesy elements to it, and because it was really advertised in the US when it first came out. With the English dub and everything else. Not to mention, of course, that the main character is a little girl, so a lot of the little kids are going to be able to relate to that. So aesthetically, this movie is absolutely gorgeous. It's about a little girl who's a fish. Not really a mermaid, but like a fish girl, right? She's like, I don't want to live this princess life, and then she just kind of runs away from home and goes to like a village, right? Like an island kind of thingy from memory. And like she finds a boy, and then she slowly starts turning human, and like shenanigans happen, right? And it's very cute. So you know how I said I didn't like environmental stories? I'm also not a big fan of ocean themed stories, right? Like I don't like Moana. I don't like Finding Nemo. Like, not like is like a strong word. The truth is that I don't see what the big deal is. They look absolutely beautiful. Don't get me wrong, I love the ocean. I love looking at the ocean. I love looking at water animation. I love nature. I love looking at trees, animated, real life. I love all of it. But stories relating to those environments, I'm just not a fan of it. And I think the reason why is because since I love the energy that they bring, I love the vibe that they bring, I don't really associate nature with storytelling. So whenever you want to tell me a story that has to do with those environments, I'm just like, I don't know, because I see it as something beautiful, right? It's something to admire, but I don't see it as entertainment. So that's my only theory as to why I can't really enjoy these stories as entertainment value. I love looking at it, but I don't love it as a story. But what about Ponyo? Is Ponyo an exception? I would say not really, but I would also say I would recommend the movie because it is nice. It's a nice watch. It's very sweet to watch. So I would say I do recommend the movie. There's also something interesting that I noticed when I watched Ponyo, and that is the fact that I realized, I think with Ponyo, I realized that the Ghibli studio kind of has like this trend in shipping children together. And I remember, like, I read a lot of my journals, a lot of them saying, like, things like, dude, I can't stand how Ghibli is constantly trying to ship children together. It's so uncomfortable. It makes me feel weird. And, like, the reason for that, I think, is because I guess I was a teenager, right? So when I saw those younger than me being, like, in relationships, I don't know, it wasn't intentional, but I saw it as, like, they're not mature. They're not mature, so, like, they don't know what love is. They don't know what they're talking about. They just met this person, right? Children are immature and they're stupid and, like, they don't know what they're doing. So why is Ghibli always, like, why is Miyazaki and, like, the studio always trying to ship children together? And after thinking about it for a very long time, I came up with a conclusion. And after that time, actually, my boyfriend actually helped me see that perspective, right? And when he told me that, I realized, yeah, I guess that's true, and I just started accepting it more, and now it doesn't bother me as much. So, like, it bothered me when I was younger, but the thing is, children, even though they are, like, innocent, like, that's the reason why I feel that Miyazaki liked making little love stories between his characters, right? Because they are innocent, because children are pure, they are innocent. So, in a way, this love is real, it is sincere. And I feel like I was, because it's innocent and pure and new, right? And I feel like I was looking through it way too much on an adult lens, on a lens that is like, no, children don't know anything, they don't know about love, but it is real and to a certain extent. Like, I had, he told me, like, oh, like, didn't you have, like, little boyfriends and girlfriends, like, when you were younger? And, like, I have, like, a lot of friends who said, like, oh, I had little girlfriends and boyfriends when I was younger, right, but it never meant anything. We just, like, cuddling and kissing each other, and it's, like, kids are kids, right? They don't really think about, like, what a relationship means. They're just, like, they're just giving each other affection, I guess. And that pure aesthetic to it, I understand now why Ghibli does that, right? It's like, it's almost like promoting to love each other, like children should love each other, be nice to each other in a way, right? And but it's obviously nothing like serious that you should take too seriously. So I just thought that it would be interesting to talk about in this movie, right? Because, like, the last shot of this movie was Ponyo and the boy kissing, right? Even though they weren't, like, doing anything super romantic with each other, the very last shot is them kissing. So that's why I wanted to tackle on that. But other than that, I really like a lot of moments in this movie. Like, it has a really nice, wholesome movies. Like, the scene with the ramen is, like, one of Ghibli's most iconic food scenes. And it's just so cute. Like, that ramen looks so good, dude. I want to eat the shit out of that ramen. And, like, I like the scene, like, with the mom. Like, oh, by the way, can we talk about the mom? Dude, this mom is so crazy, dude. It does bother me one thing, and the fact is that I hate how the mom drives in this movie. Like, if you've seen this movie, dude, she drives like a fucking maniac. Like, don't you care about your child's safety? Like, whenever she's driving, like, the car is always, like, shaking like real. Like, she doesn't drive safely at all, dude. And I remember that, like, driving me nuts when I was younger. It's like, dude, chill, calm your tits, woman, drive safely. But, like, she always drove like a crazy person, which I thought was funny. Kind of reminds me a little bit of, like, Lupin the Third, like, the driving scenes. But, yeah, like, I always thought that was funny. But overall, I say watch it once. I think it's a nice, wholesome experience. But it's not anything revolutionary or amazing. In Ghibli's terms, like, it is like the last movie before the top 10, right? So, but I would say it's nice to watch at least once. And now we are finally in the top 10. Just want to say kudos if you've made it this far before we start. So, starting with number 10, My Neighbors The Yamadas. So, I wouldn't blame you guys if you've never heard of this movie. But the truth is, it's top 10 for a reason, and that reason is that this movie is one of Ghibli's most underrated films. So to me this movie is special because I grew up with a very shitty family, right? It wasn't a very happy family or a very healthy family. I always hated family movies because the family was always like happy and go lucky and look, we are the perfect family, yada yada yada. Or like whatever the fuck, or like, oh look, we're the cringe family, oh my god, we're degenerates. Like, I hated family movies, I always have. But this one is different. This one, somehow, I really liked this movie because it felt grounded. It felt real to me. Honestly, it's like my favorite family movie that I've ever seen at this point. And when I say family movie, I don't mean family friendly, I mean a movie literally about a family, right? Which is really interesting, right? So this movie is just a bunch of short stories about the Yamadas, which is this family, right? And they're all told from the perspective of the family members, which I find it very interesting, right? Because the title of the movie is My Neighbors The Yamadas, and I feel like a better title for it would have been My Family The Yamadas. Since first of all, the first person that starts talking in the movie is the little girl, right? And all of the stories told in this movie are from the perspective of this family. So since it's told by the perspective of the family members and like it starts with the little girl, I feel like it would have been a better title, right? And speaking of the little girl, I love this entire family. I love all of their little stories. They're very quirky, they're cringy, they're relatable. There are things that happen to everyday families. It's stuff that happens to my family, your family, everybody's family, like members, like they go through shit like this. And it's just so sweet. Like, it's really, like, even the cringy moments or the sad moments or the stressful moments, they're just told with this purity and sincerity, and you can tell that all of the members of the family, even though they stretch each other, they stress each other out, they love and care for each other, and that's why I think this is one of Ghibli's most underrated films. My only problem with this movie is that maybe it's a little bit too long, though the length didn't bother me too much. It could bother like other people. I could see this movie being boring for other people because it'd be like, okay, I get it, can we conclude? But it doesn't bother me too much, right? I think it's fine. I would even say it's okay to watch this movie in pieces because it is just story after story, right? But there's one thing that bothers me a little bit, and that's the fact that I feel like all of the stories, most of them, the focus was on the mom, the dad, and the nana. That's it, right? And there's two other members, which is the son and the daughter. And I feel like they don't get nearly as much attention. They don't get nearly as many stories, as much attention, screen time, right? And I feel like the movie would have been better if they were balanced, right? I don't know, 3 stories for each character would have been fine. But it's focused on more on the adults, which is very different for Ghibli to do. Mostly they focus on the children character, but in this movie they did it a little bit different, right? But like I would have preferred if it was like more balanced out. I am somebody who recently is living with my boyfriend's family right now, and I feel like for the first time in my life I am in an environment with a healthy family, right? We're not perfect by any means, none of us are, we all have our problems, but we care and look out for each other. And I feel like that's what family is. It's those people that care and look out for you. And as someone who's didn't have that for the majority of her life, it's, I don't know, I feel like I appreciate this movie a lot more after that experience. So honestly, please watch this movie. It might be a little bit hard to watch through, so I would recommend watching it in a day that you have a lot more patience, but it's good. I highly recommend it. Only yesterday, where my troubles seem so far away, I won't sing the rest of the song because copyright. Oh, yesterday. Alright, enough music for you guys. So, I really love this movie. Like, it's my 9th pick for a reason. And this movie, for a lot of people, is not good, right? That a lot of people hate this movie. It's one of the few Ghibli movies that is 100% on Rotten Tomatoes. Yeah, 100%. This movie, and there's like another movie of Ghibli's catalog that's 100%. And they're both movies that are long, have a particularly difficult pace to sit through, but I think they're beautiful in their own way. So, what is this movie about? Well, this movie is one of Ghibli's most remarkable movies. What do I mean by that is that nothing happens in this movie. Nothing special or magical or crazy or creative. This movie is the story of a woman who was born and was a child in the 60s era and grew up in that post-war Japan era, and she grew up on the countryside, and that's the story of her life. It's the story of a woman that goes back home and relives the memories of her childhood. So the movie is about how our childhoods shape who we are today. That's it. This is a simple story about childhood and looking back on the past and looking how our past shaped us for who we are today. For a lot of people, that kind of story is boring as heck. If you've been around my main channel, you might have noticed that I read a book on my PewDiePie's book review thingy, and the first one, I read a book called Stoner. I think it was the very first book I talked about. And Stoner, much like this movie, is about the life of a person. A very unremarkable life, nothing special happens, just his life. But the thing that makes these stories special, even though you're like, wow, really? It's just the life of a boring person. There's no magical fairies from the fucking forest, to no flying pigs in the sky, no fish girls, and you say this is one of Ghibli's best work? Are you high? No, I'm not. Hear me out. This movie, this kind of story is important because it's a kind of movie that really delves deep also in Miyazaki's philosophy of live life to the fullest. Life does not have to be remarkable for it to be wonderful. And for people like me who does YouTube, who wants to write books and do VA and be an artist and, dreams of being something better with herself, with her life, dreams of making a difference. It's a hard thing to remember sometimes, but that's the truth. The truth is that your life doesn't have to be fantastic or remarkable for it to be worth living. The main character in this was a very happy child, and she's a very happy adult. And nothing special happened in her life. She went through struggles. I mean, you can argue that in comparison to other children, she was pretty lucky. She was very pampered. But that doesn't mean that she didn't suffer. She didn't go through struggles in her life. That she did go through a lot of hardships, a lot of things, like she had dreams, for example. She wanted, I'll just say this so I won't spoil it, but she did have a dream and her parents did not approve of that, so she never was allowed to chase that dream. That was really hard on her. But this movie is just filled with very simple moments of a girl, like, I don't know, eating a pineapple for the very first time in her life. Some of you might know fruit is extremely expensive in Japan. They're all honestly very commonly considered gifts. Like if you give somebody a melon, it's like a wonderful gift because fruits are just not that common there. Even though they have like some of the biggest fruits in the world, right? But they're like worth so much money. And a lot of people like call this movie like, oh, it's that movie of the girl eating pineapple. But it's like, if that's all you see, then you miss the point of this movie. I mean, there is a reason why this is 100% on Rotten Tomatoes. I still feel like the number one pick that I have, like in this Ghibli month, is better, obviously, right? And this is not like my number 2 pick, but my point, I guess, is that it is top 10. So, like, to me, this is the best that Ghibli has to offer, and this movie is underrated, it's underappreciated, and it's good for that reason that I just explained. So, I recommend this movie. I feel like, especially for us, when I say us, especially for online creators such as myself, it's a movie that it's very important to watch. It's a movie that's gonna be meaningful if you can understand its message and appreciate it just as I do. So I do recommend this movie a lot. Alright, so number 7 we have Howl's Moving Castle. So this is a Ghibli movie that I feel like I should like a lot more than I actually do, but for some reason it's just missing that spicy meatball that makes it like such a great masterpiece. But for what it is, I really like it. I think it's a very wholesome, sweet movie. So I guess I'll talk about the negatives first and then we'll talk about the good stuff. One of the things that I'm not a big fan of is the story. As you know, like Miyazaki stories don't make sense, but I feel like with this movie, a stronger story would have made Howl's Moving Castle like a movie that is from here to here. And that might be one of the reasons why I don't love this movie as much as everybody else does. The second thing is actually Howl's character. So I know that Howl, I know that the Howl's Moving Castle is actually based off a book, right? And I do know that this version of Howl is actually much nicer to the book version, but still, what we get with Howl's Moving Castle, like Howl in this movie, like he's a very like self-centered, narcissistic guy that thinks that he's the hottest shit that ever lived. And he's a bit of a himbo, you know, like he's like a hot guy, you know, hot guy shit, like hot guy who is like, who knows and thinks he's hot and is like super charismatic and like pretty boy and all that stuff, right? Which is great and all when you're like a teenager and you're like, he's so dreamy. But as an adult, I need more flavor to my man. You know, I need more intelligence or like more humility, or I need more spice to my man than just hot guy who's a himbo, you know? But as a character, like, I guess he's fun. Is just like, as a fictional character, obviously he's very fun. But I wish he had more personality to him. Like, I feel like Callisto, if I remember correctly, that's the name of the fire, had more personality than Howl himself, right? And he's a fucking fire, you know? So if they had made Howl more interesting, then I think I would have liked this movie more. Sophie, however, is my fucking bitch. I love Sophie, dude, so much. Like, low-key, she's one of the best, if not the best, like, protagonists in all of, like, the Ghibli movies, dude. Like, she's smart, she attack, she protect, she cook, she clean, and she love, dude. Like, she does everything, dude. Like, even as an old lady, she's like, okay, gotta live life, gonna ask for work in this moving crazy ass motherfucking castle. I don't know how the fuck I'm gonna clean this goddamn thing, but I'm sure as hell gonna try. She goes in there, she's like, give me work, bitch, and then fucking Howl with his fucking sassy ass attitude is like, yeah, sure, okay, pretty lady, yeah, I'll give you work, you can work here. And I also like the little kid that, there's also a little kid that is in the movie that works with Howl, like he's like Howl's apprentice or something like that, right? But even though like he is with Howl and all that, we don't really see them interact often. Like, actually we get a lot more from Callisto and Howl than Howl and the boy, right? So I wish I would have seen more of the boy. Another thing that I don't like is like the old witch that turned Sophie old, right? Like, I still don't understand to this day why she did that. If there's a reason, please let me know in the comments, but I don't understand why she did that. What was the point of that, right? And one of the things that makes Sophie such a wonderful person as well is the fact that she didn't give a shit. She went and took care of that old lady when she got much, much older and like she couldn't do anything for herself anymore. She took care of her, right? Even though she like turned into an old lady, which is like super nice of Sophie. But again, why does this bitch turn Sophie into an old lady? I don't get it. But yeah, I thought that was very sweet. I also don't really understand the point of like the Scarecrow character. I don't understand the point of like the Queen character, who's also a witch, I think. Like, I don't really get why they were there. Like, what's the point of them, or the dog, or like. So like the story really is lacking, right? Like, there are a lot of stuff that don't make sense. There's a part of the movie where like war starts happening, and it's like, why, you know? But other than that, I feel like that movie is definitely one that you feel the aesthetic, you feel the vibe, right? And the castle, dude, the castle is so fucking cool. It is one of the coolest how do I fucking pronounce that shit? Contraptions that I've ever seen in my entire life, dude. It's just so cool. Like, you open a door and it leads you to some place, and then you close and you open that door again and it leads you to another place, and it's like such an intricate contraption, like how it moves around. Like, it's super cool on the inside and on the outside. It's not just the outside that's cool, it's the inside is cool as well. Unlike, I don't know, La Puta, right? Castle in the Sky is like, inside is like, what is this? But the outside is pretty. But no, the walking castle, like Howl's moving castle is dope as fuck. It's super cool. And like, I love how like steampunkish it looks as well. It kind of looks like a fish, doesn't it? Like, from certain angles, I feel like it looks like a fish. I don't know if that was intentional. I kind of noticed that when I was looking through, like when I was making my thumbnails, I noticed like, it kind of looks like a fish, doesn't it? But other than that, like, it's such an amazing castle, right? I love Callisto the Fire. Like, he's so cool. Like, I don't know, I just really like him, even though he's like I think he's a very charming character, even though he's just a fire, right? Later on in the movie we find out that he's more than just a fire, which is pretty cool, right? And can we, like, one of the things that everybody remembers in this movie a lot besides the castle is those bacon and eggs. Those bacon and eggs, dude, they just... Oh my god, they look good! I want that shit so bad, dude. It looked like the most delicious thing you've ever seen in your life. Like, how does Ghibli do it, dude? How does anime do it? Like, they always... Don't judge me, just thinking about it, my mouth is watering. But like, how does Ghibli do it, dude? Like, they make these fucking delicious food all the time, and it's like, so good, so good. So yeah, but overall, I really like Howl's Moving Castle. It's a very nice, charming movie. It's missing something though, like for me to rank it like higher on the list. But overall, I think it's an enjoyable watch that everybody should experience at least once. Alright, this is the third day of recording. It should be the last one. And what better way to start than with number 7, Totoro. As you can see, I'm a very big fan of Totoro. I think that he's a very cute little mascot for the company. So this was actually one of the first Ghibli movies I've ever watched, which means that it really does have a soft spot on my heart. So the critiques that people usually give this movie is that it's a very cute, innocent, short movie for children. And though that is true, I feel like that doesn't mean that it's worth any less, or it's just not worth that much. Ghibli always felt like home to me. It's one of those companies that always made cutesy movies that made me feel like I belonged somewhere, made me feel comfortable and safe and cozy. And I feel like no better movie describes that than Totoro. One of the best aspects in this movie is the whole whimsical magic that comes with Totoro being a spirit of the forest and all of that green and mysteriousness and how the spirits in forest is connected. Like I said before, I'm not a big fan of nature movies, but this one is not an environmental movie, so that's why I like it. It gives me what I like, which is showing the green and the beauty of the world, a lot of color and flowers, without the boring shoehorn, let's save the environment kind of story. This isn't about that. My Neighbor Totoro is just about these two little girls who moved into a different town, or they move into like an urban area where it's just farms and stuff. And they're dealing with their mom, who is having like a terminal illness and hoping that she gets better, but we don't know if she will or not. And speaking of the mother, because of the mom being ill and a lot of other aspects, there's a lot of theorizing that people have made in this movie. One of the theories is that Totoro is like actually a Shinigami that is going to take the kids to the afterlife, and talking about how the kids are dead because it's very similar to something that happened. There's like a story that some kids like were murdered in the place that took inspiration for the settings in My Neighbor Totoro, but that isn't true. I mean, I think Miyazaki himself denied that theory. The nice thing about this movie as well is that it's an hour and 20 minutes, so it is one of Ghibli's shortest works, but it gives you exactly what you need, which is like a cozy little wholesome slice of life movie about a giant friendly panda raccoon thingy that is friendly towards kids, and it's whimsical and magical, and I really like it for those aspects. I feel like this movie represents everything that's good about Ghibli, and that's why I rank it so high. It might be simple, but that doesn't mean that it's worth any less. So I would honestly recommend this movie regardless of what age you are, as long as what you want out of your entertainment that day is just something wholesome to turn off your brain to. I feel like it's even a good movie to put in the background while you work or study, because it really just has that warmth and vibrant joy to it. So yeah, I really recommend My Neighbor Totoro. It's very cute. Alright, so at number 6 we have Princess Kaguya. I feel like this is one of Ghibli's most underrated movies as well, like My Neighbors The Yamadas and Only Yesterday. I feel like this one is, however, more appreciated on the community, and is the only other Ghibli movie that has 100% on Rotten Tomatoes, just like Only Yesterday. So Princess Kaguya is one of those very artsy movies. It has a very different style from Ghibli's other works, and it's more of this like sketchy, rough, light pencil style. And I think this movie is absolutely beautiful. I was very afraid when I watched this movie that I wouldn't like it as much, because a lot of the criticism that comes with this movie is that it's way too long and you feel it and it drags out. But personally, I didn't feel that at all. This movie for me just went by in a flash. And I can understand why some people think it's dragged out and boring. But because I liked the art so much, because the whole aesthetic and energy that this movie brings is so calming and soothing, I felt like that the time didn't really pass for me. When the movie ended, I was like, oh damn, that was like 2 hours. I thought that was like maybe an hour and a half. It didn't feel like those 2 hours. And for me to say that, even though that a lot of other people don't agree with that, it really accentuates to me the fact that I think that this movie is better than people give it credit for, and that I personally really like it more than the other entries. So the interesting thing about this movie is that it's based on a very old Japanese folklore about a girl, a princess, who is born out of bamboo. And I think she brings a lot of gold at first and a lot of fortune to the mom and dad who find her, who, by the way, they wanted a daughter really bad, but the mom couldn't have kids, and I don't know, the gods gave her this girl. But instead of just living a normal life with the little girl, the parents think it's a great idea to send her off to live in a castle for like fucking trapped for the rest of her life, like just living in this castle, not letting her really live, because they wanted to keep her safe and they wanted to treat her like the princess that she is, right? And I feel like that part of the movie really annoys me. I really hate that, because Princess Kaguya had two opportunities to fucking run away from this life and be happy. From the beginning of the movie, you can tell, like, before she goes into the castle, she's like a little girl, right? She's like 6, 7 more or less, and she gets raised in this village, and you can tell that she has a thing for one of the village boys, like one of the older village boys, right? So the two instances where I feel like Princess Kaguya could have simply just like say no or run away would be at that very beginning, where she could have just said to her dad, like, I don't know, I want to stay here, and if the dad would disagree, then she could just run away with the boy. Like, I feel like it's something they would do. Maybe the guy even suggested at one point, but I don't remember that very clearly, so take my words for a pinch of salt. And there is another, but like, I also understand that she's a little girl, obviously she's going to obey her parents, right? But when she gets older, like, she's still extremely obedient. Like, she's just like, she like has no fighting spirit, no free will to like get what you want, which is freedom from this castle. It's like not live this life anymore. She just happily obliges to everything. And it's like, I don't understand why she doesn't even try to say something against her parents. Like, come on, like, break their hearts. I don't care. Just fight for your happiness, you know? Because in the middle of the movie, or 3/4 of the way in, there is another scene where she goes on this parade and she's in like the cart. She sees like the boy from her childhood, now a man, right, who's like stealing stuff or whatever. And they lock eye to eye. They're like this close, right? She's in the carriage and he's here. Like, she could have like easily gotten out of the carriage, right? There was nothing stopping her from leaving the carriage and just running away with him. But no, she just like stays there and stares at him until he gets taken away, which is so fucking stupid. Like, I don't understand why Princess Kaguya couldn't just choose to be happy. Because there are parts of this movie, like, there's a segment with Princess in the movie. Her parents want to marry her off to these princes, and she's like, I don't want to marry any of them. So she sets them on these ridiculous quests. It even gets like, I'm not gonna say it because like spoilers, but but it's like the results of all that shenanigans, like of the quest that she sends them, is not happy, right? It's not a good thing. And like, she eventually, finally, after so long, she finally runs away, and the scene for that is actually very beautiful. It's like this sketchy, violent, running, gorgeous thing. It's a very nice scene. I really like this movie, but honestly, it's a tragedy. It really is. It makes me so sad that She could have chosen to be happy. She could have at least tried harder to like be happy or like actually get what she wanted, but no, she just like she accepts everything, right? She accepts everything, and I don't know, that really bothers me. I rather not talk about as well the ending of this movie because there are like two parts of the ending and I don't want to spoil it for you all, but it's tragic. Like I said, it's like this is a tragedy. This movie is a drama. It is a tragic movie. So if you're not ready to be sad or even cry, I wouldn't watch it. But if you're ready to watch a very emotional film who's very artistic, I highly recommend this one. It's very beautiful to look at and it's very like heartwarming story as well. But before I leave, I wanted to leave you guys with a quote that of a philosopher this movie really made me remember. The quote is, "Marry and you will regret it. Don't marry and you will regret it. Marry or don't marry, you will regret either way." And the quote like goes on. The point of the quote is like, life is always filled with regret. So maybe if Kaguya had followed her heart and just left with the boy and been happy, she could have had regret in her life. I mean, she chose that life, right? And she chose to suffer for some reason. Like, I don't know why you would choose to suffer, but that's what she chose, right? And she regretted that. But maybe if she chose happiness, she would have regretted it as well. Like, maybe things wouldn't have worked out. So I don't know, I thought it was a very nice thing to think about, is what the movie reminded me of. And yeah, like I said, I really recommend it and I hope you guys check it out. Finally, we have reached the top 5 of my favorite Ghibli movies of all time. So let's start with the thumbnail, obviously, Kiki's delivery service. So the thing that makes Kiki special is that even though it has the usual Miyazaki formula, which is basically protagonist who's a child, usually a female character, happy ending and story that makes no sense. I mean, it's a formula, but all of his stories are different even though they have these criteria in them. And even still, Kiki is such a beautiful, unique movie that I've never seen before. The movie is about this girl named Kiki who is a witch, and she moves out of her home for the first time and goes live her life in a completely different town. So in this universe, like, witches like are rare, but they are accepted into society and they are seen as this like fascinating, powerful kind of individual, right? And I really love this movie because I feel like the first time that I watched this movie, I was a teenager, and seeing this little girl move out of her house and live her life, it really stuck with me because it was in a time where I was trying to physically and mentally prepare for that lifestyle, as well as, oh my god, one day soon that's going to be me and I'm going to be moving out of my house, right? And what I think is interesting about Kiki is that she is doing this as a child, right? You don't see that in the real world, but in this world, children, like, they can move out. Like, it's almost like fucking Ash Ketchum with Pokemon, right? I feel like you can see yourself in Kiki easily, because when you're a teenager or a young adult, when you're 18 to 20, you still feel like a child on the inside. So it's very easy to insert yourself in a character like Kiki, even though she looks like a child, and she is a child. She's doing all of these adult things, these mature things. So it was very easy to insert myself. And I feel like, you know, if you consider that Kiki's a child, it's very impressive what she's doing and very brave of her. There is also one thing that I really appreciate in this movie. She is a child, right? So usually when you see movies, the child who has to do something different and something difficult is usually not that difficult. It's usually they get help or it's sugar coated for them or things are easy for them. But no, Kiki actually has to suffer a lot. And I don't mean that in like, oh, suffering. Like, I mean that like she has struggles. She has conflict. She has things that she has to overcome. She has a lot of difficulties, and a lot of those difficulties come from growing up, interacting with your world, learning about things, failing. Because the way that she makes money, right, is through this delivery service, right? And she learns a lot from this experience. Sometimes she doesn't have money, other times she has conflicts with neighbors and people and how people interact with each other and things she doesn't agree with. And it's just such a wonderful thing to see, like, her struggle, but like get her back on her feet again. Like, nothing will tear her down. Of course, she gets sad, she gets angry, she gets frustrated. She's not a Mary Sue, she's not perfect. And seeing her fall down so many times but always stand up was so powerful to me. It was so encouraging, right? No matter what happened. I mean, maybe you've seen this GIF somewhere around in the internet before. Like, it's a very popular GIF of Kiki. Kiki is like walking and she's like, right? And then she's like, oh, I'm so fucking tired. Like, in the scene, she's like super depressed, right? But she's a fighter, and I really love this movie for that. I feel like it's such a powerful, strong message to give to young adults and teenagers. And like, for the time that I watched it, it really left an impact on me, and it really did something, you know? I mean, there are some elements in the story of Kiki that don't make sense, but that's expected when it comes to the Miyazaki formula, right? And like, I noticed, like, at that time, like, this is the movie where I started noticing also that Miyazaki doesn't explain everything or a lot about his movies, right? For example, there is a point where, it's not really spoiler, but not super spoiler, but Gigi the cat, there is a point where most of the movie he was talking, but in the third act he just stops talking, and everybody is like, asking Miyazaki, why does he stop talking? And I think he said something like, well, he didn't have anything else to say. Simple as that, right? So not everything needs a why, not everything has a because. And at that time it really frustrated me, but now I appreciate it a lot more. And if I may talk about something else that I really like, is the city in which Kiki lives. I think it's absolutely beautiful. I mean, Miyazaki is really great with defining his settings, right? And this movie is just no exception. I talked about Poppy Hill before. That was a horror movie, but this one is just even more pretty. Like, so Kiki lives on top of this bakery, and I really love the bakery. Like, you can almost smell the bread. You can almost like taste the bread. I know it sounds kind of weird, but it's just so lovely. I really appreciate this movie a lot for what it did for me, and I feel like a lot of people love this movie. It's a lot of people's favorite Ghibli movies, aside from the usual Mononoke and Spirited Away. A lot of people love Kiki's Delivery Service, and it's not my number one pick, but it's definitely top 5. Alright, now this one. This is my favorite love story in the Ghibli cinematic universe. Fuck Mononoke Hime, fuck Pom Poko. This is the good shit, okay? So let me tell you what this one is about. It's a love story, right, between an artist and an artist. I can't relate to that at all, right, Proxin? Alright, I'll give you guys a little bit more context than that. So, if you watched the entirety of my Ghibli month, you might have remembered that one of the movies that I reviewed was The Cat Returns. And if you've seen that video, I talked about a girl who's a writer. And yeah, this is that movie where you get that character. So, in the beginning, it's really interesting. The girl and the guy actually hate each other, right? But because Ghibli and stuff, like, they actually get to know each other and they start falling in love, which is super wholesome. Her being a writer and him drawing. Wait, sorry, that's my life. And him being a violin player. And he also makes his own violins. So it's a very cutesy story. They're constantly talking about their love for their craft and what they're going to do with their future and how they're gonna still be together, you know, as friends and at that period, right? It's really, really sweet, and I don't always love love stories. To me, they have to be done right, you know, and I feel like this one does it perfectly. I mean, Ocean Waves, like, get that shit out of here. Whisper of the Heart is where it's at, guys. I love this movie. It's so sweet. And, you know, I feel like if there was ever a Ghibli character that was just me in a nutshell, it would be this girl. I mean, I don't know why, you know. I feel like I could just relate to her, you know. I could just relate to her, like, on a spiritual level for some kind of reason, you know, since she's a writer. But I just don't know, man. I don't fucking know. I don't fucking know why. Why can I relate to her? I just have no idea. I don't know. Maybe it's because she likes cats. Yeah, I'm gonna go with that. But yeah, all jokes aside, besides it being very personally relatable to me, this movie has the very strong, passionate message of follow your dreams, follow your passions. One of the quotes that the grandpa in the movie says is that a stone can't be polished unless you polish it yourself. It can't be beautiful and perfect unless you put in the work for it to be beautiful and perfect and round and all that good shit, right? So it is like a very good metaphor, right? If you have a talent and you have a craft, like, think of it as a stone. For it to look prettier, more presentable, like more aesthetically pleasing, or just better quality overall, you gotta polish it. And you gotta polish it slowly every day over time until you get a satisfying product. And I think it's a very nice metaphor for anyone who's a creative who loves doing something in their lives, right? You can't just be satisfied with what you already have. You have to exceed your expectations and keep getting better and better and better. And that again goes with the Miyazaki philosophy of you have to always exceed your own expectations of yourself and do better. Personally, I don't agree that you have to work yourself to the bone and kill yourself over art, but yes, I think that we should always try to improve ourselves. Until we are satisfied, right? If we are satisfied with one skill, I don't think that we need to look desperately for something to improve. We can improve on something else or acquire a new ability, right? Because if you polish the stone way too much, eventually there's not going to be any stone, right? So I think it's better to expand on your talents, not just focus on one stone. But regardless of all of that, I think it's also a very beautiful and realistic love story compared to all the others, because the main characters, they always have this dilemma of what we are going to do with our futures, right? Like the main boy, I think he's offered the ability to travel overseas, to make his violins and study, and it's very heartbreaking for the girl, right? It's I care about you, but I also want to be with you. This is a Ghibli movie, Miyazaki movie, so, you know, a happily ever after. There's always that ending. Look, I'll just say it because it's not that big of an important spoiler, but, yeah. The movie ends basically like this. I love you, Shizuku. Will you marry me? That's exactly what I wanted! Dude. You are 13! 13, bitch! You gotta think about your life, bitch! You can't just go marry a dude! You're 13! love aside, it's very wholesome, right? But let's be realistic. You can't marry someone when you're 13. That's just not how it works. But okay, I want to be optimistic. Maybe it does work out between them. Maybe they have their happily ever after. Maybe they date for many, many years until they're in their 20s and then they can get married and have a beautiful, happy life, you know? It's a very optimistic take on it. I mean, it worked out for me and my significant other, or at least it's working out for now, right? Life is very unpredictable when it comes to love and art and the opportunities that you get in life. But I do feel like just have fun along the way and always try to like make the best out of everything and always try to stick together if you can. I mean, it's optimistic, it's extremely optimistic, but it doesn't always work out. It's good to be optimistic though, and I guess that's all about what I can say, if I can say anything about the subject. But yeah, overall, this is a very sweet movie. If you like a romance that I feel like again, this is Ghibli's best romantic story. And if you want to see that, I highly recommend this movie. I feel like anybody with a passion for any kind of art or anything in their life, be a craftsman, writer, violinist, doll maker, anything. It's a very lovely movie to see. When Marnie Was There is a very special movie. And one of the things that I love most about it is the fact that, unlike most other Ghibli movies, this one actually has a concrete story that actually has a because to everything that happens. And for Ghibli, it's like very rare to see. I absolutely love this movie. I thought it was beautiful, it was tragic, it was filled with life, great characters, beautiful colors, a nice mysterious story where I kept wondering the whole time the X and Y and Z of what was going on, and a fucking main character that I both hate, at least on the very beginning, but I grew to love at the end because she has development, and I love this bitch so much! This is one of Ghibli's tragic and beautiful tales, just like movies like Princess Kaguya. But it leaves you off on a more bittersweet ending. It is a little bit more happy and hopeful than the Kaguya movie. Even though I love this movie, however, there is something about it that makes me feel like I was so cucked, you know? But I will talk about that later in the spoiler section. So, what is this movie about? Well, we have our main character who moves in with her uncle and aunt, if I'm not mistaken, to a town that's like small and humble that she's never been to before. She's going there for a summer vacation, right? And she has a very traumatic family. Like, she lost her parents and overall is like having a hard time growing up because of like family issues. Eventually at night, like, she goes to the other side of this really big lake and there's like a party going on with this girl called Marnie, and then like the story starts to kick in. And we start to wonder, who is Marnie, why is she there, and all of the mysteries of this movie. And I feel like this movie is just so refreshing. Like I said, it's just something completely different from what Studio Ghibli has made. I mean, I don't know who this dude is. This is the director. I don't know who you are, dude. But thank you so much for making this, like, for real, dude. It's really good. So the message for this movie is very much, you have to be grateful for the things that you have. We start off with an MC who's very, like, miserable because of the stuff that happened to her life. And she's very bitter about it, right? But throughout the movie, she learns that there is beauty in life. Even with the sad things, there are beautiful things, and she needs to learn to be more accepting of people, like put herself out there more, risk getting hurt emotionally, risk to love again, to care again for people, and, you know, just not be a dimbag that she was at the beginning of the movie. I actually wrote a really nice paragraph on my journal about this movie. Everyone is a little bit broken sometimes, but we should always try to make the best out of both of our broken selves and our broken situations, but subverting our expectations of the world and ourselves little by little. And I feel like, yeah, that's something that I that I wrote right in. It is the message that stuck to me with this movie. So yeah, there's not much more than I could say about that. It really is one of Ghibli's best work, and you should definitely check it out. But now let's talk about the spoilers of this movie. So, dude, that ending with Marnie ended up being the grandma of, you know, the main girl the whole time. Wow, I did not expect that at all. It was very surprising. And it was mostly surprising to me because am I the only one that got gay vibes from both of them? Like, obviously Marnie is not gay because she's a grandma, right? But dude, I got gay vibes so bad between those girls. Like, dude, they seriously felt like a romantic couple, you know? And I was getting, like, so hopeful. I thought that they would be, like, the first LGBT, like, Ghibli couple ever, dude. And I was like, oh, dude, it really feels romantic. Am I the only one that thinks that? Am I crazy? Like, please let me know in the comments, like, if I'm not the only one. I really hope I'm not, because I really just got those vibes from the girls. Like, they're just like gay for each other. And I'm pretty sure the MC's still gay. Come on. That girl ain't straight. Marnie might be straight, but this girl ain't not straight, okay? She just not straight. She like the female booty, okay? But, and I know, like, Marnie being the grandmother, I think it's like a very, like, I think it's a very good plot twist. I think it's very good and it fits very, very well for the story. But because they had this whole gay vibe going on the whole movie, it did make me feel a little bit awkward when I found out that Marnie was the grandmother the whole time, dude. It made me feel guilty. Like, come on. I really hope I'm not the only one that thinks that. I'm not usually a person that cries a lot with movies, media, or just anything like entertainment in general. I am a very sensitive person, but a lot of that content just doesn't make me bawl my eyes out. I can see like a movie like Marley and Me where the dog dies and then I get really sad, right? But I don't cry. Like, I feel that pain and that sadness for a while, and it goes away, right? I feel like for me to cry with an anime movie, what have you, it really has to do, like, a very strong impact on me. A lot of studios, like Pixar, for example, they wear this badge of honor of being very sentimental, emotional movies, where the main characters, like, they went through tragedies, they lost family members, or just something sad happens overall, and they make you cry. I mean, take a look at Up, or Inside Out, Coco, or Toy Story 3, the ending, for example. I've heard a lot of people say they cry their eyes out with so many of these movies, but I never felt anything. Like, it was like, oh, that's sad. But other than that, nothing. I didn't understand why so many people felt so sad when they watched this kind of content. Because for me, it really has to hit hard. And for me, that movie was Grave of the Fireflies. I really thought about between Marnie and Grave of the Fireflies, like, even though both movies fucked me up. But Grave of the Fireflies, it made me cry a lot. It made me bawl my eyes out. It is one of the 5 anime contents, like series/movie, that has made me bawl my eyes out. And I think that the reason why is because when I watched this movie for the first time as a teenager, I thought it was a very humbling experience. When I found out that this was a Ghibli movie, I raised an eyebrow and wondered if it was going to be good. I mean, it was one of the first ones that I saw, I do believe. So I wondered, what is this family-friendly studio going to make that's sad? I don't think they're gonna make something super sad. Man, was I wrong. This movie completely screwed me over emotionally. And I think it was also a very humbling experience because as a teen, when you hear stories about World War II, World War One, all that stuff, you hear everything about history rise, the US and the UK, and then Germany and all that stuff. And up until that point, I haven't heard too much about Japan's side of the story. Obviously, I know now about Hiroshima and Nagasaki, but at that point in particular, I didn't know much. And I said before, with the previous installments that I don't like war stories. I don't like stories about war. But this isn't a war story to me. This is a movie about the tragedy that comes with war, if that makes sense. So it is different. It's not about the guns and the fighting and the violence and the explosions. It's not about any of that. It's about two children. Two civilians, children, innocent, pure, who have no fault whatsoever what's going on and all of the suffering that they have to endure from bombardings from the US or the aftermath of the war. And it felt very humbling to me. I was able to put myself easily in the shoes of these children. I felt the simple joys that they felt over the easy and simple things like eating candy or just eating the juices that came from the leftover of that candy. I felt the sadness and the pain that they had to endure from infections and disease and death and all of that, and losing their mother, etc. And you see in the first 5 minutes of the movie that the main character dies. The main boy. You see him die. So it's not really a spoiler. But because of how the movie is portrayed, I feel like you kind of forget. I forgot. I mean, I saw these two innocent children and I really put myself in their shoes. Like, my God, what if that was me? And that's what made me relate to them and be humble about the whole experience. So you kind of forget because you're rooting for them the entire time. You're like, they're gonna make it, I know they will, but then they don't. And it was one of the most destructive experiences I've ever had to witness, from watching a movie. It tore me apart. And this kind of story always impacts me deeply and strongly, and it's the kind of stories that I never forget. My favorite kinds of media have always this kind of stuff that impacts me deeply. I don't have a solution if this were to happen to me. Like, if war would ever happen in my life. This movie also has a very extreme conflict, very thought-provoking conversation subject of to what extent do I help, to what extent is it not okay to help, because these children, because they become orphans early on and they have to be with their aunt, right? And that woman is a monster. She's a fucking monster. Like, she's not like mean to the children in any like physical abuse, but she doesn't support them, she doesn't care for them, she's not loving, she's not caring, and they're just kids. She's constantly trying to tell them to like get work, get money, get something. Like, yeah, they have to earn the right to like be in that household. And that's not something any child should need to prove. Like, they're deserving of a roof and rice. And, like, this is the aunt of these children, but she treats them like complete strangers, and I that's just so heartbreaking. Like, there is a scene where the little girl is like crying in the middle of the night because she's going through like a very tragic moment, but instead of being a mother and like a loving caretaker, the aunt is like, shut the fuck up to this child, this little girl. You know, like, when I think about it, it's just so fucked. It's so fucked. So yeah, this movie is like full of moments where doctors are like, there's another scene where the boy like wants to take his sister to the hospital, and the doctors say like she needs rest and good food, and the brother asks her, where do I get that? Where? How? There are more. They don't have access to those things. And there is another scene where they try to steal some vegetables from a farm, and the farmer like is like, who is in there? Right? So people are just trying to survive. These adults can't afford to take care or help children because they're trying to survive themselves. I feel like that aunt was especially cruel because she was family, right? I kind of understand the situation of the doctor and the farmer so much, but it's, I don't know, it's just a movie I think about sometimes. It's just tragic, and to me, these kind of tragic stories are beautiful in a way, right? They're beautiful in the sense of like it's the pain and the things that make you feel are in a way beautiful, right? And yeah, even though it's sad movie, it's a tragedy. I love this movie. I love this movie. I think it's wonderful. And with all that, this is why Grave of the Fireflies is my second favorite Ghibli movie.